Hey guys, welcome back to the biggest agricultural platform in Namibia known as Ndunawe Ngombe, which means headman of cattle. My name, of course, is Mitchell Mutumba Simata, aka the headman of cattle. Today, on the 11th of October 2021, this Sunday evening, I'd love to touch on a burning agricultural issue, which is stock theft. I've seen it's been spoken about on larger platforms, it's been spoken about on the newspapers, they've had seminars on how to stop stock theft. It's a pandemic on its own. It's a pandemic on its own because we've all experienced stock theft, whichever form, whether it was large stock, small stock, large stock or small stock. We've all had the unfortunate luxury of experiencing stock theft on our farms or in our villages. So I'm going to share some tips how to probably combat stock theft. So let's get into this, eh? How to prevent stock theft. As a farmer, your animals aren't just merely sources to make money from, but they become part of your family. You get to know them, you get to understand their characters, and you get to understand their characters and personalities. You'll also want to be sure you do everything you can to protect them. That's the biggest thing. Luckily, there are many simple solutions that can help steer away would-be cattle rustlers, which are cattle criminals or livestock criminals, and keep your animals safe. There's some steps that are available. First one is know your cattle. I always say this: know your animals, know the color, know the size, if it's Nguni cattle, know the patterns. If it's Simbra or Simmental or Brahman, know the color and the patterns and the unique patterns on them. So how do you do this? Daily visits to your cattle kraal. Walking amongst your cattle every day, counting your cattle, and noticing when animals have gone missing. In the communal areas, particularly in the northern part of the country, where we keep our animals in pens, they sleep in pens. So before the animals leave, you walk in between them to make sure that everybody is there before they leave, and when they return, you walk in between them again to make sure that everybody has returned back from the field and everybody's accounted for. So it's very good to know your animals, look at your animals, and know if anything is missing. And if anything is missing, you react very quick, and also walking between your animals, noticing if any of the animals are missing. So that's the biggest thing that you can do when, particularly in the communal areas, when your animals sleep in kraals. And on farms, when your animals sleep in camps, they always go out to the camp graze and they always return every morning. What we did back on our private farm, which was fenced off pieces of land, we'd always count our cattle when they returned. We'd go through them with a list. You can call it a road call form. We'd walk in between them with that road call form, and we would walk in between them, look for certain ear-tag numbers, and tick off whenever we find the animal. We tick off to say that the animal returned. If it wasn't if we haven't ticked its ear-tag on the list, we would go back into the farm and go look for the animals to try and bring them back. And then the next thing is keep your fences and gates well maintained. Very important, because the best thing you can do is, if you are in a communal area or you're on a farm, the best thing you can do is build your animal holding pens far away from the road. I have seen that the holding pens or the kraals that are built near a road are usually easy targets. Those guys would come in, either kill a cow, or it'd be easier to load animals because they're closer to the road. So make sure that they are far and they are concealed. Put them very far and concealed and in secure areas, and make sure that if you are locking your cattle in a kraal, if your cattle sleep in a pen, in a kraal, make sure that the gate is strong, your locks are strong, it's not easy to break, it's not easy to get access. Make sure that your gate hinges are very good, and always inspect damages. If your kraal is made out of fence, inspect damages within the fence, fix those damages. And if it's made out of the traditional boma, which is made out of a acacia thorn, make sure that you inspect the acacia thorn, and where you see there could be vulnerabilities, you reinforce it. So that's very important, Make sure that it's strong, and the material you use to build this enclosure is of good quality. Because those weak spots, if people that steal cattle, your gate is locked, all they can do is come and tie it from its hinges and lift it open and chase the cattle out. That's a problem. You don't want that. So make sure you do keep your holding pen stuff such as your gate, and other facilities in your holding pens are strong and are always reinforced. The second one is be observant. If anything seems amiss, trust your gut. For instance, if you see signs that someone might have been on the property, such as a footprint or tire tracks near the perimeters, take extra precaution. The same goes for you if you notice any suspicious vehicles making repeated visits or slowing down near your land. So that's something you can also keep an eye on. Because on your private farm, when you would notice that if something just seems out of place, probably footprints you don't recognize, car tracks that you don't recognize, or you keep on seeing cars that are driving fast, and then suddenly when they reach your kraal or where your cattle are standing, they slow down for a minute, look at them, or sometimes just stop completely. That's something that you can have a look at. In the communal areas in your village, the one thing you can do is be observant. When you start seeing strange people, always, if you start seeing footprints at your kraal and you can't recognize who these people are, you just start seeing strange movements at your kraal. Because one thing I've noticed is, in the Zambezi region, we tend to build our kraals right behind our houses. Let me say a few meters from the house, maybe 6 or 7 meters from the house. So we'd always keep an eye out for everything. If we see that something's out of place, we're vigilant. Footprint, tire tracks of a car, anything that's out of place, we would already, the warning bells would start ringing. So those are things that you have to look at. And then mark your animals, mark your livestock, whether it's ear tagging or branding. Very important. I know in most communal areas they notch the ears a bit, they notch the cattle ears, as this is a way for them to be able to identify. It helps them to be able to identify their animals. And this is something that is very, very important. Branding your cow, making sure that the brand is branded on the right spot, it's visible and it's clear and it's branded well, is a way to actually deter people from trying to steal your animals. I know sometimes some cattle rustlers will do this thing where they steal your cattle, and then on top of the brand you have on them, they go rebrand another one. What police officers do nowadays is they use shaving cream, and they can actually shave the fur off where the brand mark is. So if the animal has been doubly branded, on the skin it would show. That always shows on the skin. So that is something that you can do. What you can do is mark your animals clearly on your property. Make sure that their brand are clear. Ear tag and brand them. Don't just rely on the ear tags. The guys can cut the ear tags off. And another thing you can do is tattoo your animals. You can put tattoos. You can put the tattoo in the animal's ear. So it's very important. And make sure that when you get your brand mark, you obtain your brand mark from your state vet, that it's registered for your animal, so you do not end up getting in trouble. And then make friends in your community. It's very good, whether it's a private farm or in a communal area, when you're having kraals within an area where there are probably 2 or 3 kraals, it's very good for you to build relationships with your neighbors. In most occasions, in most communal areas, our kraals are usually, the neighboring kraal will usually be a relative, whether it's an uncle, an aunt, a brother, a sister, they'll always have a kraal next to you. So if not, and it's people from far, you do not know them on a private farm, it's always very good to make sure that you have good relationships with the people next to you, as most of the time, these people will be the first ones who probably be able to alert you if a case of stock theft has happened. And, in your communal area or on your commercial farm, you guys can join together and start up your own farm watch, or you can call it neighborhood watch, but I'd call it farm watch because it's on the farms, where you guys could communicate with each other to say, I saw suspicious movement, or I saw a suspicious person at your kraal at around 8 o'clock this morning. I didn't know if it was one of your workers, so I'm just alerting you. So that's one way you can go about it. Make friends and make sure that you and your neighbors are in good talking terms, so you guys can help each other when stock theft happens. The second one is make an investment in technology. Very important if you can. I know technology is easier said than done, but it's bloody expensive. Stuff such as surveillance cameras at your kraal, that could be expensive, but that's another way you could go about high tech. Motion sensor lights, as they call it, security light, or most of us would call it. You can get that. And the technology can also be your eyes and ears at night when you're sleeping. So if you probably have a camera in your kraal, private farm, communal area, your cattle are sleeping, this camera captures everything that happens in your kraal, all the activity. If people come or wildlife come to your kraal, it captures all of this. And the motion sensor camera, light that comes on when there's movement of animals. Because at night, at night cattle, just like particularly the ones in the communal areas, I know the ones on commercial farms graze at night. But at night, cattle would sleep. Particularly the ones that sleep in crowds, they would be sleeping at night. They would usually huddle up somewhere and sleep. So they wouldn't be moving around. So it's very good to have these things. Because if you have a camera, put at a hidden spot where people can see it, number one. If you have a camera put at a hidden spot, people can see it, number one. If you have what do we call this thing? If you have a motion sensor camera motion sensor light and motion sensor cameras that capture every movement that you crawl, that will be a deterrent for criminals. Because what you need to do is, you don't even need to go confront them. You can catch them in the action, or you can catch them in the wherever they took the cattle, and you can bring the proof, and you can take that to court, or even take it to the local police officers, and actually have these people arrested and prosecuted for it. And then limit access to your property, which is very true. Having people moving in and out of your farm, whether it's a commercial farm, people are moving. Let's say there's an ex-service road that drives through your farm. There is another risk, because people entering your farm in and out, you do not know who's coming in, who's coming out, and you do not know who you can trust and who you cannot trust. So that's something that you can do. If you are building your kraal again in an area where there's probably an access road, it'll be best for you probably to move your kraal away from there, because you're having people moving in and out. You say here, even your livestock isn't easily noticeable from the road, and therefore not attract random thieves. You want to be sure that people coming onto your property are trustworthy. Whether you're getting feed delivered or have service people coming in and out, be cautious about who you give alarm codes. Who you give alarm codes and so forth, or you give copies of your keys. We had this problem on our commercial farm, where we had NamPower, which is the power utility service here in Namibia, had a key to one of our gates, and they would come through our farm and monitoring the electrical wires to make sure that the wires are fine. And what this did on the end of the day, some of these colleagues would not lock the gate or would not close the gate, they'd leave it open, and our cattle would escape and enter, our cattle would escape and walk in the roads. We had one case where one of our animals got stolen like that. There are numerous of occasions where this service providing people, whether it's NamPower, which is the electrical service provider, NamWater, which is the national water provider in the country, come into your farm. Some of them end up being part of poaching syndicates. They poach on your farm. They end up killing wildlife on your farm without even informing you. So you need to make sure that you have a relationship with these people. And this is why, if you're part of the service providing industry, utilities, water and electricity, you would see some farmers are very aggressive and and do not want you guys on the farm, because sometimes you guys come and hunt and kill some of these animals. So this is something that you can have a word with. In a communal area, probably the best thing you could do is move your cattle away from, if they are planning to erect power lines there that might run through your run through your kraal. So the best thing for you would be probably to remove your kraal there, because you wouldn't want problems and you don't want random people entering your holding pens, and that's how animals start going missing. Insure your animals. In the unfortunate event that livestock does get stolen, insurance can reduce the financial burden. Be sure your farm insurance policy include suitable cover for your livestock. So that's something else. I've seen, I think King Price, I think probably Outsurance, I think Old Mutual, and other banking insurance services that are there are starting to give agricultural insurance for farms and cattle. So you also want to have this, having an insurance policy for your animals. If you can, probably communicate with your bank to have an insurance policy, which is a good thing, which would actually save you in future if stock theft does happen. The question is, will it happen? It's not about will it happen, it's about when will it happen, when it will happen. So that's how you can actually, few steps that you can do to keep your animals safe. Getting insurance on your cattle, goats or sheep, whatever it is you're running, is very important. Limiting access on your property is another thing. Making investment in technology, cameras, motion sensor cameras, drones, all these things you can invest in the various technologies. Make friends in the community, very important. If you're on a commercial farm, make friends with your neighboring farmer. If you're in a communal area, make friends with your neighbor who owns the kraals on both sides of you. Make friends with those people. And also Mark your animals, mark your animals. Branding your animals is very important. Good ear tags, getting probably ear tag and a tattoo in the cow's ear and getting it branded. I know nowadays people are starting to inject chips in their livestock to be able to monitor them. To be able to monitor your animals, be observant. Anything looks out of place, trust your gut. You know, any strange footprints, any strange tire trends, trust your gut and actually start asking questions. And make sure that your infrastructure, your crawls, gates, your fence in your crawl, or your fence on your farm are all well taken care of and undamaged. That's very important. Know your cattle, different personalities, how they look, their color, and so forth. It's very important if you want to be able to overcome the weight of stock theft. And now I know somebody will ask me, but Mitchell, what if I farm near a border? Again, just making sure that you're vigilant, you know all your animals, you know how they look, you know the type of cow, and you can actually, when they say define your animals, your cow's appearance, you can actually paint it from its tail all the way to, from the tail all the way to the head and the tongue. That is very important. This is why knowing your animals is extremely important when you become a farmer. Knowing your goats, knowing your horses, knowing your pigs, knowing your cattle, knowing your chickens, knowing your sheep is very important. Knowing how they look and being able to describe it to a police officer, describe it so well that he already has a picture painted in his head of how the animal looks like. But again, branding and tagging and tattooing your animals is another important thing that you can do before you can start investing in all the other technologies. So that's how you can actually prevent stock theft, whether it's on a commercial farm or in a communal area. That's the few things that you can do. Remember, guys, new technologies are coming out. You can also liaison with the local law enforcement. Set up a farm watch. I can't call it a neighborhood watch, but a farm watch. That would be something that would be brilliant if the various farmers could come together and set that up as a way to deter criminals. So those are my 2 cents on how to minimize stock theft or how to prevent stock theft within your communal or within an area, your farm, communal or commercial area you're farming in. Those are my 2 cents, guys. With that said, bye for now.